I had a conversation with a client recently who was struggling to get himself to go to sleep on time. And this was not a dumb guy. He was a husband and dad running a 7+ figure business, really sharp dude. And he knew it was a problem because he was working with me to lose fat. And he was down about 10 pounds, but he knew this was keeping him stuck because it was increasing hunger hormones, increasing stress hormones, throughout the rest of the day, making it way more difficult to wake up and hit his workouts consistently. And I was talking through this with him and just asked him a few more specific questions about, what he did after work every single day. And he told me, what you'd expect a dad and a husband does, which is hang out with the family and eat dinner and kind of wind down and watch a show or something like that. And I asked him very directly, like, what time do you actually go to bed? And this is where, the real ugly truth started to come out. And he let me know that he was going to bed at like 1-ish a.m., every single night. And I asked him, why? Like, what do you and your wife do towards the end of the night that is, causing you to stay up so late? Why not just go to bed earlier? And what he told me was that him and his wife actually don't go to bed at the same time. And this is where I started to take a step back in my seat across the Zoom camera and recognize that there were some potentially deeper issues at play that were causing friction in him being able to go to sleep at the same time. Because any time I hear that a man does not go to sleep at the same time that his wife goes to sleep, barring some wild scheduling circumstance, I see red flags everywhere. Because as a man, if you are not going to sleep at the same time as your wife, what are you doing? Why are you still awake? You're doing nothing productive if you are awake and your wife is asleep. You're either watching something you shouldn't, eating something you shouldn't, or just wasting time. And so the red flags kind of started to flare up for me at this point. And he continues to explain, well, I like to watch sports at the end of the night. And so my wife goes to sleep and I usually stay up and, watch a hockey game or a football game or whatever it was. And, I asked him, like, how many hours on average, per night are you watching sports? And I can't remember the exact number he gave me, but it was, over an hour a night of watching sports every single night. And at this point, I knew everything I needed to know. And it prompted me to share with him how I get myself to go to sleep on time every single night and not stay up and feel like I have to watch something. And so I asked him a few questions that were kind of teasing him a little bit, I guess. And they were kind of just like, man, like, why don't you just go to sleep? Like, why do you got to watch sports type of thing? And he's just being very candid, honest, and open with me, like, very humble guy, a Christian guy. And he was just like, man, I don't know. Like, I really like watching sports. I know it's a waste of time. I know I should be going to bed, but I really like watching sports. And so I shared with him how I process not staying up late at night, doing other stuff that I know is not helpful. And I explained essentially that a lot of times when I've felt that I've wanted to stay up later at night and continue doing something that was unproductive, whether that was watching TV or watching a movie or watching sports or something like that, I recognized that my brain's desire to have some kind of dopamine hit at the end of the night came from me not having a perception that I had won the day. And if that sounds a little bit up in the air, just hold on with me a little bit because I'm going to explain some of the science. When our brain starts to crave things at the end of the night, whether it's watching TV, watching a movie, where we're getting to see a plot in someone's life play out and see them go through challenges and see them be victorious, whether it's watching sports and we're getting to see people literally endure physical hardship and potentially get a goal, right? Living vicariously through our favorite teams, whether we're seeking out food and we're staying up just eating food and scrolling on our phones. All of that is our brain seeking dopamine. Dopamine, commonly associated as the reward neurotransmitter, is actually the precursor to reward. So it's what our brain secretes when it is thinking this is going to make us feel rewarded. And so when we're watching movies or watching sports at the end of the night or just eating and scrolling our phone, our brain is doing that because it thinks those behaviors are going to make us feel rewarded. It thinks that's going to get us reward. And a lot of times that comes up at the end of the night when we're looking back on our day and we don't feel reward. We're looking back on our day and we don't feel like we did what we were supposed to do. We're looking back on our day and we don't feel like what we did, even if it was great, was actually in alignment with what God was calling us to do. And so regardless of what your tangible level of success is, like for this guy, his tangible level of success in comparison to the general population was high. He was still getting to the end of every single night, and his brain was seeking reward. It didn't get that sense of reward throughout the day. It didn't get that sense that he was doing something in alignment with what God called him to do throughout the rest of the day. And so at the end of the night comes, it's like we can't go to sleep until we get this dopamine hit. We can't go to sleep until we get this perceived reward. And so even though he knew it was harmful to his health and to his success, he would seek it out. And so we implemented this practice at the end of every night for him and his wife to do together that improved his sleep. And he even sent me a text saying that his wife found it extremely refreshing. So if you're in this situation and you're like, dang, Gabe, this is true. I do, don't feel like I had the best day and I just want to wind down. I just want to watch my favorite team play. I just want to eat some food. I resonate with your client here. I think this will be really helpful to you, and your wife might say it's really rewarding. But essentially what the exercise was at the end of the day, ideally right before bed, my client and his wife, I'd have them sit down for a few minutes with each other and talk through what throughout the course of that day they accomplished. What were the wins over the course of that day? And they started doing it. Again, his wife said that it was refreshing for them, and it seemed to impact his sleep and his ability to get to sleep, at the very least, give him some more insight and awareness of why he was struggling in that area. And it's interesting because this is something that I naturally practice myself as the day's winding down. Of course, in conversation with my wife, but also just in prayer and in my own conversations in my head where I'm thinking through, here are all the good things that God worked out throughout the day, regardless of what the tangible results were, whether they were tangibly what I was going for or even tangibly not what I was going for. I'm still reframing the entire day as I wind down as a day of victory. I'm still counting it all joy when I face trials of many kinds. I'm still doing my best to recognize God's narrative on the day and how it moved me towards what he has for me, regardless of what took place. And that practice of getting to the end of the day and counting your wins, it gives your brain that sense of, all right, we are on path. We are on path to being rewarded. Dopamine, just from that practice in and of itself. And if we can do that, then we'll seek out that dopamine less and less frequently via staying up for 3 hours watching other guys prance around, in jerseys or looking for a ball. We'll be less frequently seeking it out through food at the end of the day or watching a movie at the end of the day. And not that any of those things are bad in and of themselves. I do that sometimes, but what could be bad is why you're doing it. And certainly if it's causing harm to your health and you continue to do it, then at that point it's becoming definitionally an addictive behavior. And so you need to be hyper aware of that. If you're constantly seeking out something, anything to quote unquote wind down at the end of the day, and you just feel like you can't go to bed until I do this, that it probably has something to do with how you're perceiving what you did throughout the day, and counting it all joy, counting your wins, allowing yourself to reframe what took place can bring you that peace at the end of the night that makes it easier to close your eyes, fall asleep restfully, and thereby be able to wake up earlier, take care of other things that need to get done, and just live an overall healthier life. So hope this blesses you. If you're struggling with this, see you on the next one.